It's a fact that food prices aren't going down. Every single week you go to the grocery store and that number at the register just keeps climbing. And most of us are doing everything we can to stretch a dollar, clipping coupons, buying store brands, watching the sales. But what if the real money-saving move wasn't about what you buy this week, but what you stock up on right now before you need it? Because there are 15 foods sitting in stores right now that will outlast your mortgage. These are foods that simply don't expire. Foods that you can buy today, tuck away in a cabinet or a closet, and pull out 5, 10, even 20 years from now, and they'll still be completely good. This means that there is absolutely no waste, no throwing money in the trash. Just food that's there when you need it. And the number one item on this list, it was actually found perfectly edible inside an Egyptian tomb. We're talking thousands of years old. So stick with me because that reveal at the end is worth the wait. Oh, and before we get into this, if stocking a smarter pantry and keeping more money in your pocket is your kind of content, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And drop a comment right now. Well, how stocked is your pantry at this moment? Are you the type who always has backup supplies, or do you shop week to week? I read every single comment and I love hearing from you. Okay, let's get right into it now. Coming in at number 15 is white rice. White rice is probably the most underrated survival food on the planet, and most people already have some in their cabinet right now. But here's the thing. White rice, when stored correctly in an airtight container, kept away from light and moisture, can last indefinitely. Some studies have shown rice that's 30 years old is still perfectly safe and nutritious. Now, brown rice is a different story. It has natural oils in the bran layer that go rancid. That's why it only lasts 6 months or so. But white rice has had those oils removed, which is exactly what makes it last so long. One big bag from the store sealed up tight, and you've got a cornerstone of your emergency pantry for decades. The cost per serving is almost nothing. It's filling, it's versatile, and it never lets you down. Number 14, salt. Salt doesn't expire, period. Pure salt, whether it's table salt, sea salt, or kosher salt, has no expiration date. And because it has no moisture and no organic material, bacteria and mold simply cannot grow in it. It's been used as a food preservative for thousands of years for exactly that reason. The only thing that can happen to salt over time is clumping if it absorbs moisture from the air. That's it. And even then, it's still perfectly fine to use. Just break it up and keep going. Buy it in bulk, store it in a cool, dry place, and that's your seasoning taken care of for life. Salt is also one of the cheapest things in the grocery store, so stocking up costs almost nothing. Number 13, honey. Now, honey gets its own special moment later in this list, and trust me, it earns it, but even as a standard pantry item, honey is remarkable. Pure raw honey has been found in ancient tombs, still perfectly edible after thousands of years. The science behind it is simple. Honey is so low in moisture and so high in natural hydrogen peroxide that bacteria literally cannot survive in it. The only thing you need to watch out for is crystallization. That thick, grainy texture that honey sometimes gets doesn't mean it's gone bad. It just means the natural sugars are doing what sugars do. You can set the jar in warm water and it'll go right back to liquid. Buy pure, raw, unfiltered honey. Avoid the cheap stuff that's been blended with corn syrup. That won't last the same way. One good jar of real honey, sealed and stored at room temperature, will genuinely outlast you. Number 12, pure vanilla extract. This one surprises people, it really does. Pure vanilla extract, not imitation pure, lasts indefinitely because of the alcohol content. The FDA actually requires pure vanilla extract to contain at least 35% alcohol by volume. And alcohol is a natural preservative. I actually have a bottle in my cabinet that I've had for years, and it just keeps getting better. Real vanilla extract, just like a fine wine, actually deepens and improves in flavor as it ages. So you're not just preserving it, you're improving it over time. The imitation stuff is a different story. That's made with synthetic vanillin and additives that will eventually break down. But pure vanilla extract? Buy a good bottle once, store it in a cool, dark cabinet, and that's it. You're done. All right, we've already got 4 foods that will genuinely never go bad working for your pantry. But the next group is where things start getting really interesting. Number 11, white sugar. White sugar is one of those things that people throw out way too early. It gets hard, it clumps up, it looks like something went wrong, and into the trash it goes. But that's money you were about to hand over for no reason, because white sugar doesn't actually expire, ever. Sugar is hygroscopic, which just means it pulls moisture from the air around it. That's what causes the clumping. But the sugar itself is completely fine. No bacteria can grow in it, no mold can take hold. Break up the clumps with a fork, toss in a piece of bread or a marshmallow to absorb extra moisture, and keep going. Stored in an airtight container away from humidity, white sugar will last indefinitely. Granulated, powdered, and raw sugar all fall into the same category. The only sugar that doesn't make this list is brown sugar. It has molasses in it, which changes the equation. But plain white sugar? Stock up without a second thought. Number 10, distilled white vinegar. Distilled white vinegar is one of the most useful things you can have in a pantry, and it has no expiration date, none. The acidity level in distilled white vinegar, right around 5% acetic acid, makes it completely self-preserving. Nothing can grow in it, nothing can break it down. It is, chemically speaking, already a preservative. Now, over time, you might notice a little cloudiness, or what looks like a web-like strand floating around the bottom. That's called the mother. It's a natural formation of cellulose and harmless bacteria, the same kind used to make vinegar in the first place. Now, over time, you might notice a little cloudiness, or what looks like a web-like strand floating around the bottom. That's called the mother. It's a natural formation of cellulose and harmless bacteria, the same kind used to make vinegar in the first place. The vinegar is still perfectly fine to use. You can strain it out if it bothers you, or just leave it. Either way, a gallon jug of distilled white vinegar stored in a cool cabinet is going to be just as effective 10 years from now as it is today. And the price per gallon is almost nothing. Number 9, cornstarch. Cornstarch is one of those overlooked pantry staples that almost never gets talked about in terms of shelf life. And that's a shame, because pure cornstarch lasts indefinitely when stored properly. It's a dry powder with no fat, no moisture, and no organic compounds that could break down or spoil. There's simply nothing in it for bacteria or mold to feed on. The main enemy of cornstarch is moisture. If water gets into the container, it'll clump and potentially grow mold. But if you keep it in an airtight container in a cool, dry space, it's good forever. One box or one bulk bag, properly sealed, and you've got a thickening agent for soups, sauces, gravies, and baked goods for as long as you need it. It's cheap, it takes up almost no space, and it never goes bad. That's the kind of pantry staple that earns its spot. Number 8, baking soda. Pure baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, does not expire. The confusion around this one comes from the fact that it loses potency over time when it's been left open. An open box sitting in your fridge absorbing odors for 2 years might not give your baked goods the lift they need. But that's a potency issue, not a safety issue, and it only applies to boxes that have been exposed to air. Baking soda that's sealed, still in its original packaging or transferred to an airtight container, stays fully effective for much longer than the date on the box suggests. And even slightly weakened baking soda still has plenty of uses outside of baking. It cleans, it deodorizes, it unclogs drains. So even in the rare case where it's too old to make your biscuits rise, it's still earning its place in your home. Buy it in bulk, store it sealed, and you've got a cooking and cleaning staple that costs almost nothing and never runs out of usefulness. I'm curious, how many of these are you already keeping in your pantry? Drop it in the comments, because I genuinely want to know how many people are already ahead of the game on this. And if you're not stocked up on these yet, that's exactly why we're here. All right, we're more than halfway through, and the back half of this list is where things get really good. A couple of these are going to surprise you, including one that most preppers know about, but regular shoppers almost never think to grab. Number 7, hard liquor. This one raises a few eyebrows, but stay with me. Distilled spirits, we're talking whiskey, vodka, rum, gin, tequila, do not expire. The alcohol content, which sits at 40% or higher in most spirits, makes them completely self-preserving. Nothing can survive in that environment. No bacteria, no mold, nothing. Now, wine and beer are a completely different story. Those are fermented, not distilled, and they absolutely do go bad. But distilled hard liquor, an unopened bottle stored in a cool, dark place will last indefinitely. And even an open bottle stays safe. The flavor may slowly change as it oxidizes, but it won't make you sick and it won't go bad in any meaningful sense. Beyond the obvious uses, high-proof spirits have real practical value in an emergency, as an antiseptic, as a fire starter, as a trade item. A bottle of vodka or whiskey tucked into your stockpile isn't just a pantry item. It's a multi-purpose tool that never expires and never loses its value. Number 6, instant coffee and tea. If you can't function without your morning coffee, this one's for you. Commercially sealed instant coffee, the kind that comes in a sealed glass jar or a vacuum-packed tin, has an indefinite shelf life when kept unopened. Once you open it, you've got a few years of good quality before the flavor starts to fade, but it won't ever become unsafe to drink. The same goes for tea. Dried tea leaves, whether loose leaf or in bags, last indefinitely when kept away from moisture, heat, and light. The flavor will mellow over the years, but properly stored tea is never going to hurt you, and it'll still make a perfectly good cup. I keep a separate sealed tin of both in my stockpile, completely separate from my everyday supply. That way my backup stays untouched until I actually need it. For the cost of 1 or 2 extra jars at the store, you've got your morning routine covered no matter what's happening in the world. Number 5. Dried beans and lentils. Dried beans and lentils are one of the most calorie-dense, protein-rich, affordable foods you can store, and when kept properly, they last indefinitely. Black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, red lentils, green lentils, all of them. Sealed in airtight containers away from light and moisture, they will sit on a shelf for decades without going bad. Now there is one thing worth knowing. Beans that are very old, we're talking 10 years or more, can become harder to rehydrate. They'll take longer to cook and the texture might be a little tougher than fresh dried beans. But they're still completely safe to eat and still packed with nutrition. The fix is simple. Soak them longer before cooking. That's it. For roughly $1 per pound or less, dried beans and lentils give you more food security per dollar than almost anything else in the grocery store. A few large sealed bags or airtight containers of assorted beans tucked away in a cool cabinet is one of the smartest pantry moves you can make. Number 4. Raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar. Raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar with the mother is in a category of its own. Like distilled white vinegar, the acidity makes it self-preserving and gives it an indefinite shelf life. But raw apple cider vinegar brings something extra to the table. Natural enzymes, probiotics, and beneficial acids that distilled vinegar doesn't have. The mother you'll see floating around in the bottle isn't a sign that something went wrong. That's actually the good stuff, the natural culture of bacteria and enzymes that gives raw apple cider vinegar its reputation. And unlike the distilled version, the mother in raw apple cider vinegar only gets stronger and more active over time. Bragg is the brand I've personally used for years, and it's the one I keep stocked. A bottle costs around $3 to $4, and it pulls weight as a health supplement, a cleaning agent, a cooking ingredient, and a meat tenderizer. That kind of versatility with no expiration date attached to it makes it a no-brainer for your stockpile. And if this has been helpful so far, real quick, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming. The tips and strategies I share on this channel are designed for real people trying to make real money go further, and I don't want you to miss a single one. All right, now let's keep moving through the list. We are down to the final 3. And number 1, I promise you, is going to stick with you. The story behind it alone is worth staying for. So don't go anywhere. We have some great tips coming up. Number 3, powdered milk. Fresh milk is one of the first things to go when the power goes out or supply chains get disrupted. It lasts about a week in your fridge on a good day, but powdered milk is a completely different animal. Commercially sealed, non-fat powdered milk stored in a cool, dry place can last between 2 and 5 years at peak quality. and well beyond that in terms of safety. The reason it lasts so long is the same reason most items on this list do. No moisture. This lack of water is why it lasts. The drying process pulls out nearly all the water content, which is the only thing bacteria needs to get started. No water, no bacteria, no spoilage. When you're ready to use it, you just mix it back with water and you've got milk. It works in baking, in cooking, in coffee, in oatmeal. My kids couldn't even tell the difference when I used it in pancakes, and trust me, they would have said something. For families with young children especially, having powdered milk stocked is genuinely smart planning. A large sealed canister costs a few dollars and takes up very little space. And for anyone who goes through a lot of milk and hates watching it go bad before the week is out, rotating powdered milk into your baking and cooking is a habit worth picking up right now. Number 2, white distilled vinegar in large quantities. White distilled vinegar already made the list at number 10, but it deserves a second mention here at number 2, and here's why. The uses for vinegar go so far beyond cooking and salad dressing that stocking it in large quantities is one of the highest value pantry decisions you can make. And because it never expires, buying it in bulk is pure upside with zero downside. Now just think about what vinegar actually does in your home. It kills garden weeds without using any harsh chemicals. It removes hard water stains from fixtures and appliances. It strips mineral buildup from coffee makers and kettles. It cleans and deodorizes laundry without harsh additives. It kills certain bacteria on surfaces when used at full strength. It preserves other foods, pickles, relishes, canned vegetables, when used in proper canning ratios. A gallon jug of distilled white vinegar costs around $3. When you stock 4 or 5 of those, you've essentially bought yourself a cleaning supply closet, a garden tool, and a food preservation system all in one purchase. And every single jug will still be just as effective 10 years from now as the day you brought it home. That's the kind of math that makes sense no matter what your budget looks like. Number 1, pure raw honey. And here we finally are at the very top of our list. The absolute number 1 choice for food storage, the single food on this list that doesn't just last a long time, it lasts forever. And the proof of that isn't a lab study or a food scientist's opinion. The proof for this claim is found in history. Archaeologists excavating ancient Egyptian tombs found sealed pots of honey inside, some of them over 3,000 years old. And when they discovered it, they actually tasted it. Remarkably, they found that it was still good. It was still sweet and perfectly preserved for us to enjoy today. Still perfectly edible after 3 millennia. Let that sink in for a second. A food that survived longer than most of recorded human civilization, sitting in a jar, ready to eat. The science behind it is genuinely fascinating once you look at it. Raw honey is so low in moisture, typically around 17 to 18% water, that bacteria and mold physically cannot survive in it. It also contains natural hydrogen peroxide, produced by an enzyme bees add during the honey making process. And the pH sits so low that it creates an environment that is simply hostile to any kind of microbial life. It is, in every measurable way, naturally self-preserving. Now, the key word here is pure. Raw, unfiltered honey from a reputable source is what you want. The cheap Honey Bear squeeze bottles you see at the grocery store are often cut with corn syrup, diluted or heavily processed, and that changes everything. Added moisture from the corn syrup raises the water content, which opens the door to fermentation and spoilage. Real honey doesn't do that. Real honey sits there indefinitely, waiting for you. And beyond the shelf life, raw honey is a working pantry ingredient with real medicinal history behind it. It's been used as a wound dressing. It also soothes sore throats quite effectively. It has natural antimicrobial properties that make it genuinely useful when you don't have access to a pharmacy. I keep a large jar of local raw honey specifically set aside, untouched, sealed, stored in a cool cabinet as a long-term stockpile item, and a second jar in regular rotation for everyday use. Buy it from a local beekeeper if you can. Farmers markets are a great source. You'll pay a little more than the grocery store brand, but you're getting the real thing. the version that actually earns everything we just talked about. A good-sized jar runs anywhere from $8 to $15 depending on where you buy it. For something that never expires and does everything honey does, that's not a cost. That's a genuine investment for the future. So there you have it. 15 foods that you can stock today and never worry about wasting. No expiration dates, no throwing money in the trash, no scrambling when the grocery store shelves look thin. Just a smarter pantry working for you instead of against you. Which one of these are you adding to your stockpile first? Or is there a food I missed that you already keep stocked for the long haul? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one and I always learn something new from this community.